everyone, welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a check of the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump signals a restraint on Iran, saying he hopefully won't need military action and plans direct talks, while Pentagon officials affirm readiness. In Europe, the European Union brands Iran's Revolutionary Guards a terrorist group, sparking protests in Brussels and warnings from European Union leaders that the region can't afford another war. Trump announces a brief ceasefire in Ukraine, claiming Russia has agreed to halt shooting, and Putin agreed to spare Kyiv during harsh winter cold. Ukrainian President Zelensky urges US support to stop Russian strikes on energy infrastructure as the European Union blacklists Russia over money laundering risks. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer praises real progress from his China visit, focusing on trade and ties, but President Trump calls it very dangerous for Britain to engage with Beijing. Donald Trump praises and teases a new Federal Reserve Chair announcement next week, with potential frontrunners in the spotlight as he ramps up criticism of the central bank's policies. Trump credits Hamas for facilitating hostage returns and hints at their potential disarmament as bodies of Palestinians returned by Israel arrive at Gaza hospitals amid fragile peace talks. Families demand answers in Spain's tragic train accident as the royal family attends a memorial mass for the victims amid ongoing investigation. Mexican President Sheinbaum and President Trump discussed trade ahead of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement review, aiming to strengthen North American economic ties. US financial markets see extreme volatility as sharp swings in gold and silver and equities lead to $9 trillion movement in capitalization. Alright, viewers, we have some fresh updates on the Nipah virus outbreak. The World Health Organization has now downplayed the risk of the deadly Nipah virus spreading in India, despite the country reporting 2 cases. According to the World Health Organization, the risk of further spread is considered low, and the organization does not recommend any travel or trade restrictions. The Nipah virus can cause severe illness and death, but authorities believe the current situation in India does not warrant extraordinary measures. India has been monitoring the cases closely, and no further outbreaks have been reported so far. This comes after Indonesia and Thailand imposed checks on all inbound flights from India following the announcement of 2 cases of infection in India's West Bengal. Alright, and we now move ahead. Now, US President Donald Trump has credited Hamas for playing a significant role in the return of hostages from Gaza. He noted that the return of the final 20 hostages was challenging but successful. Trump emphasized that the US had been able to bring both living hostages and the bodies of those who had died back to their families. US Envoy Steve Witkoff added that the policy of peace through strength had been key to the success of the mission. He explained that the second phase of the US plan to end the Gaza war involved the establishment of an all-Arab technocratic government and the disarmament of militant groups, including Hamas. Trump expressed optimism that Hamas would disarm, with Witkoff further confirming that the process was already underway. Let's listen in.
I think I would like to ask Steve if he could just give us a brief description of how well we're doing in the Middle East, because we have peace in the Middle East now. There's a couple of little minor flames that we put out very easily. And very importantly, we got our last hostage back, which is incredible. Unfortunately, this was something that nobody said could be done. And I will tell you, Hamas was a big factor in getting all of the the hostages back. They had we were not happy with them, and they had to bring them back. And they found the dead hostages, the bodies of hostages were, and those parents wanted their sons back. I think in all cases sons, but they wanted their sons and their family. They wanted their sons back as much as the people that had living hostages that we got them back to. So we got the 20, but remember, we got hundreds back previous to that. But I always said getting those last 20 back is going to be very tough. And we got them back, and we got all of the bodies back also, which to those parents was just as important as getting back the son that was living. And now we want to get Hamas no guns, right?
Right, they're going to give it up. They're going to give up the AK-47s.
A lot of people said they'll never disarm. Looks like they're going to disarm. And they did help us with those bodies, getting them back.
And that family is so grateful to you. They called, I spoke to them, Jared spoke to them.
All right, joining me now in this discussion is retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar, who is now an international relations expert and joins us from New Delhi. Dr. Kochar, thanks very much for joining us. Firstly, the big question is Hamas really going to disarm?
It's a very, very important question, because that is the fulcrum on which this entire peace accord has been based. Because any further progress of the peace accord can only take place in case disarming of Hamas is achieved. And that is going to be a tall task, in the sense that firstly, it would require the role of the international stabilizing force, which in my mind should be around 25,000 strength, because anything less than that, it would be difficult to stabilize Gaza. And who should be part of that force is also a major actually concern, because right now what is emerging is the likely contributors are going to be Egypt, Jordan, Morocco and UAE. I know, and Pakistan and Turkey's role has been rejected by Israel. So I don't think Pakistan and Turkey will get to play here. And one more aspect of difficulty in disarming Hamas is that Hamas is not one integral group. Hamas has certain splinter groups, which one or two of them, which I am aware, are not in agreement of handing over their weapons. So now this becomes a challenge, because this handing over of the entire weapons has to be done by the entire force of Hamas, whatever be the factions involved. Second is that it is also linked to the withdrawal of the Israeli Defense Forces from Gaza, because we are aware that this disarmament will not take place unless IDF withdraws and there is an international stabilizing force in place. So now a bigger and the larger question is that when is this international stabilizing force going to be there, and it is going to be effective from which date, because that clarity has not so far emerged. And also there is a talk now that the United States would also contribute to this stabilizing force in terms of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, command control backbone and air defense coverage, and as well as the European Union, France, Italy and Spain and Germany are likely to pitch in, and basically for the intelligence fusion part of it and the training part of it. And the next is that it is extremely important that we need to avoid Gaza becoming a militarized zone, because whenever there will be a militarized zone, there will be always a possibility of some kind of a gunfight or showdown between Hamas and other forces. So now the larger question is, why Trump is actually doing this signaling is because he is trying to appeal also to his domestic audience that he has been able to push through the Gaza peace plan, and Hamas is cooperating with him, because that is the signal he's trying to give to them. And in the region also, as far as the Israel and the Gulf states are also concerned, he is also sending that a post-Gaza war order is in place, and it is happening because, contrary to reports, there were indications that this peace accord is not a success and it is a failing. So Trump is trying to send a message that the peace accord is progressing well, and he is also trying to exert the pressure on Hamas now, because he's putting the onus on Hamas now, and he's telling Hamas that, so far you have done your job, and hostages have been returned, and he says, I'm sure that Hamas will also surrender their weapons and disarm themselves. So I think in the end we have to get into a reality check, and we have to see those scenarios which are likely to emerge in Gaza, but certainly, Kriti, it's a very, very challenging task.
Right, but how much credit should really go to Trump for really taking this initiative and pursuing on it? Because clearly the fact that Hamas had agreed to return the last remaining hostages' body was only after, the Board of Peace plan had come up.
Certainly, I think credit where it is due must be given, and credit to Trump certainly needs to be given, because before this Board of Peace, nothing was happening there, and there was no semblance of a peace treaty or tranquility in that area. But definitely we have seen now, and daily reports also are coming in there, less of fighting, though of course this ceasefire so far is holding, but certain sporadic incidents of gunfights and firefights have also been seen, and some Palestinians also been killed. So, but in the larger picture, I think Trump needs to be given that credit, because he has made things happen in Gaza, and getting the Board of Peace functional also was a big challenge, especially getting the support of the other countries, and mostly the Gulf countries or the Muslim countries are in favor of this and are supporting the peace plan of Trump.
Right. Dr. Kochar, do stay on. As we move on now, viewers, let's also tell you that Ukrainian President Zelensky has expressed hope that the US will help secure a week-long pause in Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy sector, citing the upcoming cold spell. Zelensky mentioned that more than 450 apartment buildings in several Kyiv districts are currently without heating, most of them due to recent strikes. He thanked US President Donald Trump, who confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin had agreed to halt strikes during the freezing temperatures. In response, the Kremlin reiterated its invitation for Zelensky to visit Moscow for peace talks as US-led efforts to end the war in Ukraine continues. Let's listen in to Zelensky.
Дякую американській стороні за зусилля, щоб в цей час зупинити удари по енергетиці, і сподіваємось, що Америці вдасться це забезпечити. Є сьогодні заява президента Сполучених Штатів. Ситуація зараз вночі та цими днями, реальна ситуація на наших об'єктах енергетики, у наших містах це покаже.
Meanwhile, the European Union blacklisted Russia, citing risks of money laundering, which will increase transaction costs with Russian banks. Here is what Kaja Kallas, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, said.
The EU today blacklisted Russia for risk of money laundering. This will slow down and increase the costs of transactions with Russian banks. Work is also advancing on the 90 billion loan and the 20th sanctions package. Any measure that limits Russia's war funding must be on the table. There's also a proposal ban Russian ex-combatants from entering into Schengen. It's a security risk.
And I request Dr. Kochar to join us back in the discussion here. Dr. Kochar, now, of course, Trump has once again said that he's the one who's asked Putin to halt the strikes for at least a week amid the cold weather, and Putin has also agreed to do that. What is your guess that Putin is really going to be doing that?
You see, I have my doubts in whatever statement Trump makes because it's not a joint statement. It's not a statement which is coming from either Russia or from any of the you 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 mediators or things like that, Turkey or from Istanbul or anything like that. So what we are seeing is it's a one-sided statement, and Ukraine is in real trouble. Let me tell you, Ukraine has brought its back to the wall, and Ukraine is in very serious trouble because of the reason that Russia has targeted the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, and especially Kyiv. Things are pretty bad, and you're aware it's winter months now, and so Zelensky is now making an appeal because he really does not have much choice because the way the Russians have reoriented their and redefined their strategy to target the systematic infrastructure degradation of the energy in Ukraine is hurting Ukraine and Zelensky in particular. So I think what Zelensky is now putting pressure on United States is either he wants some air defense batteries, Patriots and other things to come to Russia, to come to Ukraine, because his air defense resources are very, very stretched now. And he is not having that capability of intercepting any of those Russian missiles coming at him. And especially at this point of time, including the railway network has been affected. I believe more than 10,000 kilometers of railway line has been damaged in this war. So moving of goods from one place to another is also a problem. So I think the situation has come in which Trump is trying to now reassure Zelensky now that he has had a conversation with Putin, and no further attacks will take place. But many a times, Kriti, we have seen this happening when Trump has made a statement like this, but Russia has continued to attack. So I think we need to wait and watch, because if Trump has made a statement this time, we would like to see in the next 96 hours, in case there is a fresh strike by the Russians. In case it is not there, then definitely a possibility of talks may emerge to the next level, and we may like to see a ceasefire in this war, because it's hurting Ukraine more than Russia. Russia is also hurting in this war because its economic situation is also not too good. And then with the European Union blacklisting now Russian banks and things like this. So the source of actually funds will also get dried up for Russia. So I think though Russia has made some parallel financial channels through China and Middle East, because they are doing trading in their own currency, and they are able to get over a part of the crisis. But I don't think that is a very strong arrangement, because you have to, as a country, you have to get into international transactions, and which I think Russia is having a problem as of now.
Yeah. And as far as the invitation to Zelensky from Russia has gone to come to Moscow for talks, do you think Zelensky is now going to accede? Because earlier he's not agreed for Moscow as the venue for bilateral talks.
So that's a very interesting question, because Zelensky has always maintained a stand that he will not go to Moscow. He will come to some third neutral country, because like it happened in Istanbul last time when these talks had taken place. So I am a bit skeptical on this, because though Putin has called him to Moscow, but he may have to give certain security guarantees here, because safety of Zelensky because he doesn't know that if he goes to Moscow, he may not come back. So that is also a point to actually consider as far as Zelensky is concerned. So certain security guarantees may have to be given, but I still am of the opinion that Zelensky may not go to Moscow because I think he would not like to jeopardize his own safety and security. So, by my opinion, I don't think he will take on this proposal from Putin.
All right, Dr. Kochar, thanks very much then for joining us and weighing in your opinion. And we move on now, viewers. US President Donald Trump has said that it was very dangerous for the UK to increase business ties with China. Trump made these comments after UK Prime Minister met with Chinese President Xi Jinping during a 3-day state visit to China, which, as reports say, is aimed at boosting trade and investment between the two countries. Let's first listen to Trump's full statement.
Mr. President, what do you think about the UK getting into business with China? Keir Starmer was in Beijing.
Well, it's very dangerous for them to do that, and it's even more dangerous, I think, for Canada to get into business with China.
Alongside UK, Trump also warned Canada, saying it was even more dangerous for Canada to deepen its ties with China. Moreover, he criticized Canada's economic performance, suggesting that turning to China was not the solution. It is important to note that Trump had earlier threatened to impose tariffs on Canada if it proceeded with its economic deals with China, which followed a recent visit by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to Beijing. Now, turning to the UK's response, Starmer has described the UK-China relationship as being in a good, strong place. Starmer has stressed progress in several areas, including an agreement on visa-free travel and lower risky tariffs. There is also a significant €10.9 billion investment from AstraZeneca to build manufacturing facilities in China. Let's listen in to more of Starmer's statements on the UK-China ties.
And yesterday we warmly engaged and made some real progress, actually, because the UK has got a huge amount to offer, and I was able to set that out. And as a result of our engagement, we've halved the tariffs on whiskey and also got visa-free travel to China for Brits. So really important access, symbolic of what we're doing with the... So to our Chinese colleagues, I say please take the opportunity to mix with our delegation, because that engagement is so important. I fundamentally believe that the more we engage, the more we exchange, the more we take advantage of the opening of access to opportunities, business, art and culture and so many others, then that is the way that we build the mutual trust and respect that is so important.
All right, and I invite China strategist Andrew K.P. Leong in this discussion. He joins us from Hong Kong. Mr. Leong, thanks very much for joining us. Firstly, what do you think is really irking the United States, Trump particularly? Is it really the UK and Canada shifting more towards China after his threats, or is it his fear of losing a market to China?
Well, this is all President Trump's own doing, because Canada has always been a very close next door neighbor, very large next door neighbor to the United States, both in terms of trade and geopolitical views of the world, and by affinity of civilization and culture. The United Kingdom, particularly, of course, very close historic ties with the United States, and even in recent years, doubling down on this close relationship. And unfortunately, President Trump's unilateralism and bullying extending to its closest allies are now pushing both Canada and the United Kingdom towards China. But let's be real, because both Canada and the United Kingdom have already made it quite clear that it's not that they are embracing China entirely. It's not as if they are choosing China in preference to the United States. It's that it's going to be a kind of recalibration of relationship, because the opportunity for trade has been is fractured because President Trump's unilateral tariffs and unpredictability. So countries like Canada and the United Kingdom have to find a plan B. And the plan B, of course, is very large economy of China. That's what's happening.
All right, sure. Mr. Leong, do you think there's going to be any change now? Because Trump has continued his threats. Even to Canada, he's threatening 50% tariffs over aircraft until Gulf Stream is certified. And we all know what's happening with the transatlantic alliance, and UK has clearly signaled its discontent with Trump's tariffs and policies over Greenland as well. Is there going to be any pushing back from Trump, because can it really afford to lose large markets like these?
Well, I think that the President Trump has now got his hands tied, and then the closer relationship between Canada and United Kingdom, and indeed many European countries adopting the similar kind of strategy to hedge their bets, to recalibrate the relationships, and to seek other markets, not just China, but other countries as well. For example, the European Union has signed a historic mother of all free trade agreement with India, for example. So I think that all countries are looking elsewhere. I don't think that President Trump is going to lash out left, right, and center, because his hands are increasingly being tied, both domestically because of the pushback against his policies inside the United States by the Democrats. Externally, more and more countries have now been estranged by his unilateralism. So I don't think that he's going to sound warnings, of course, but I think that the what's happening on the ground is not a total, as I said, a total embrace of China. It's just recalibrating the relationship. But look at the United States Prime Minister Starmer's signing these deals with China. It translates into several aspects. For example, visa-free travel, and of course this is welcomed by China to enable foreigners to have a better understanding of what China is all about, instead of being misled by all the twisted narratives. And then the closer partnership in services. Of course, the UK excels in services, professional services, financial services, technological services, and so on which the United Kingdom has an edge over China. And then, of course, even intelligence sharing on crime, especially the illegal immigration into the United Kingdom, because a lot of the boats arriving on the United Kingdom, and these illegal boats use the motors manufactured in China, so China could play a part there. Fourthly, cooperation in sort of standards in healthcare, medicine, pharmaceuticals, and then the closer relationship in the form of a UK-China joint economic and trade commission, trying to cement and smooth out any problems of trade between the two countries. And last but not least is facilitating the export of the United Kingdom's exports to China, and trying to pick out problems in advance and trying to smooth the passage. So all these are very practical, and it's not going to does not translate into forming a strategic alliance with China against the United States.
Right.
So I don't think that it's going to anger President Trump that much.
All right. We'll watch out for that. But Mr. Leong, thanks very much for joining us. And we move on now, viewers. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has said that she held a productive conversation with US President Donald Trump, discussing various issues including trade, security, and the future of their trilateral trade deal with Canada. The two leaders spoke about the ongoing negotiations surrounding the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, which is set for a formal review by July 1. Sheinbaum also mentioned that both countries are making progress in discussing trade rules and tariffs. She also touched on the importance of the treaty for Mexico's economy, noting that the country is working towards reforms, though nothing concrete has been finalized. She also emphasized that both sides are committed to continuing their cooperation. On the issue of security, Sheinbaum affirmed Mexico's stance against joint operations by US forces on Mexican territory, though she confirmed the ongoing collaboration and information sharing between the two countries. Let's listen to her statements.
Y duró como 40 minutos más o menos. Y hablamos de varios temas. Ayer, como saben, estuvo el secretario de Economía con el secretario de Comercio y con el embajador Greer para seguir hablando del tema del tratado comercial. Y pues hablamos de varios temas y quedamos de seguir avanzando. Hay bastantes avances, pero todavía no podemos comunicar. Pero fue una conversación muy cordial. Sobre temas de seguridad, los dos coincidimos que vamos muy bien. Y sobre el tema comercial, pues hablamos varios temas que seguimos ahí conversando.
And as always, some tech news before we wrap up the bulletin. Now, former Google software engineer Lin Wei-Ding has been convicted by a federal jury in San Francisco for stealing AI trade secrets to benefit two Chinese companies. Ding, who joined Google in 2019, was found guilty of economic espionage and theft of trade secrets after an 11-day trial. He stole thousands of pages of confidential information related to Google's supercomputing data centers and AI hardware infrastructure. Ding could now face up to 15 years in prison and millions in fines. His case was part of the Biden administration's effort to combat tech espionage. Google cooperated with law enforcement but was not charged. Ding's sentencing is expected in the coming months. And that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching NewsX World. For more news updates from around the world.